Hey everybody, it's Felicia Stitzel with Vintage Vine Marketing and welcome to today's Wine Wednesday. So I know the last couple weeks we've been talking about a lot of technical stuff. So today I thought I would kind of bring it back to home. Today we're going to be covering the top 6 ways to crush your sales in your tasting room at your winery. Now, the reason why I say this is close to home is because this is where the rubber meets the road at every single winery. Because I, as a marketer, could be blowing your advertisements out of the water on social media, but if they come to your winery and they have a bad experience in your tasting room, then all the marketing in the world won't be able to get that customer back. So this is why I wanted to re-emphasize some of the more home tools that wineries need to implement in order to not just crush their sales, but to exceed, excel, and prosper in their sales in each and every tasting room. Personally, I have seen how these 6 tactics have been able to work both as a consumer and as a sales rep. Being able to kind of see on both sides of the counter what I want to see as a consumer when I'm going to a winery, anticipating spending money, and I also am able to see the back end of things as I'm behind the counter, I'm engaging with customers, I'm watching my sales team as they are engaging and going through tastings with people. So this week, not only are we going to call on my expertise and my experience in the wine industry, but I also called up a few friends who have been in the wine industry for many, many years and have been the top salesperson at their wineries for months and months. So they've shared their sales tactics and what they see have been the difference between making a several $100 wine purchase versus just doing the tasting and leaving. So the first secret that I'm going to go over is your tasting room staff is your secret weapon. Now I know this is kind of a no-brainer, but the reason why I want to reiterate this to a lot of wineries is because sometimes wineries feel that the atmosphere that they're trying to create is in the building and is in the wine. But sometimes, and I've seen this when visiting wineries, is sometimes wineries don't remember that people visit wineries not just for the wine but for the experience. And the people who make the experience are the people who are behind the counter and the people who are representing your winery brand as a company to the public. So this is why I say that your sales team and your staff at your winery are your secret weapon, because they are the difference between making a sale and having visitors stop by. So I just really want to reemphasize that for wineries, you want to not only hire really good, happy, friendly people, but you want to train them as well. You don't want to just throw somebody out into the tasting room in the middle of your busiest day and say, good luck. You know, if you're not able to train them so that they have an understanding of the wine, if they aren't being able to speak knowledgeably, the customer is going to know that. And they're going to be able to perceive that the person you just threw out in front of them, they're not prepared. And so that kind of takes away from the experience that the consumer wants to have when they visit your winery. So when I was talking with my friend and she was giving me tips on things that wineries need to emphasize with their staff is engage. You have to engage. And not just about how's the wine, what kind of wines do you like, but ask them a lot of questions. My friend, I watched her in action for countless times, and every single time that she was engaging with the customer, it wasn't just quick snippets that had easy answers. She wanted stories. She wanted to know where they were coming from. She wanted to know where they were going. She wanted to know about their families, where they came from. I mean, she wanted to know about them because the more she knew, the more she was going to be able to turn that information into turning into a profitable sale. So that ties into our second tip, which is always go above and beyond. Go the extra mile. If they're about to go on a wine tour, then they don't want to be buying their wine beforehand. And so they might come up with the excuse of, well, I don't want to buy my wine now and put it on the car. Always anticipate your customers' needs. So offer to hold on, if they want to do their tasting while they're killing time before the wine tour, then offer to hold on to it behind the counter. That way they don't have to carry it or put it out in the car where it could get hot and ruined. Always go the extra mile. Talk about all the things that your winery has to offer as far as deals. People are always looking for deals. They're looking for ways to save money, especially in today's economy where everybody is always hunting for the dollar to save. So if you are offering them and they don't have to search for it, they're going to appreciate that you took the time to explain to them what deals you have going on, how you could save money, what discounts they could get, and all the different ways that they could save money. They're going to appreciate that, and that is going to be reciprocated by spending money with you. My third tip would be make your wine easy to sell. So a lot of wineries, when they're doing tastings, their wine is actually hidden behind the counter. And most wineries, knowing the back end of reasons why, wineries do that so that way they can keep the display nice, your tasting counter is nice and clear, especially when things start getting really crazy and the traffic starts picking up. Like, you don't want your counter to be cluttered. But it's always good to have some kind of display out so that way people can not only see the tasting room sheets where they can see the information and the pricing of every wine that you have to offer, but they also can see the bottles. I went to a winery a couple weeks ago where they had every bottle of wine that they have ever made within that vintage that was ready for sale up on the counter, and as soon as you walked in, they had their logo up in this beautiful metallic setting up on the wall, and then as soon as your eyes come down, you see this row of bottles of wine. And there is no better way to walk into a winery than seeing wines on the counter ready to drink. And I thought that was the most inviting thing, because now you're not having to look at all the counters and kind of search around for the wine. It's right there in front of you. And how we did our tasting was I had the tasting sheet in front of me, but I wanted to go over and look at the bottles because it had everything so beautifully laid out with their logo on it and where the vineyard, the grapes were harvested from. And everything was just laid out so beautifully on the label that I wanted to look at the label versus looking at the tasting sheet. And I made all of my tasting decisions based on what the bottle looked like, and I made my decision from there. I had an idea of what I wanted, but I would look at the tasting sheet, it would give me the information, but then I would compare that to the bottle, and I'd be like, that bottle just looks so cool, and they did such a good job with it. I really want to try this one. So a lot of decisions can be made by having your wine out for people to see. So that would just be a suggestion. I wouldn't say put your bottles that you're pouring on the counter because, things can spill, get messy. We don't want it to look bad or cluttered. But to have a display bottle out on the counter somewhere for people to see, even if it's behind the counter. But if it's somewhere that people can see easily, I would highly suggest that, because people are compulsive buyers. So if they see it, they're going to want it. And if they don't see it, they don't know that they want it. You kind of have to lead your customers into a purchase sometimes. So that leads into my fourth tip, which is always ask for the sale. The reason why I say to ask for the sale is because as a sales representative for your winery, your staff has this amazing opportunity where they have created a relationship with the customer. They've talked to them, got to know them, and now they're being able to kind of get towards the end of their tasting and towards the closing. And this is when I would say the rubber meets the road when it comes to sales, because now it is on your sales team. You could ask them towards the end, what were your favorite wines? And then as they give their answer, which your sales staff, by the way, should be intently listening to, but as they reply, you can be engaging with them like, oh, you picked like 3 of my 4 favorite wines. And this is it creates some kind of rapport with them. It creates a camaraderie, that this relationship that you've built over wine. And your customers are then able to see that they aren't just dealing with a salesperson. They're dealing with a person, somebody who enjoys the wine, somebody who they can relate to because of that relationship that they have established now over the wine. And so if you're not asking for that constant upsell, then your business is losing money. So my fifth tip is to invest in your current customer satisfaction. And the reason why I say that is because even though we love having new people come into the tasting room, we always want to have that new traffic coming in because that then grows your winery's audience and you start growing as a business. We love those things. But if you don't take care of and appreciate your current satisfied customers, then you're going to be losing out a lot. Now, the reason why I say that is because I have seen this as both a winery operator as well as a consumer. Because when I was working at wineries, I loved having friends and family coming into town because I wanted to take them because I was so proud of where I worked that I wanted to share that with everybody. As a wine consumer, when I have a positive experience with a winery that I have visited, I want to share that as well. So it's instead of having the pride of working at a winery, it's the pleasure of having good wine, great atmosphere, wonderful company, great customer service, all the things that make a consumer want to come back and continue to spend money with you. My last tip would be to stay in touch. It's so easy to ask for an email that is then going to continue engaging and incentivizing with your customers long after they leave, and it continues to incentivize them to return. These emails can be special offers, discounts, any special sales you have going on, events coming up, or like we talked about a couple weeks ago, is that once you have that email, you can then input that into your Facebook ad and continue to engage them through social media sites. There's so many different ways that you can use that email once it's been given to you to have that customer not just be a single customer, but be a returning customer, somebody who's constantly advocating for your wine, engaging with your social media sites, and returning to buy more wine. So the takeaway of this whole Wine Wednesday today is engage with your customers. I cannot emphasize that enough. So there's this kind of stair-step process of being able to just crush your sales in your tasting room. But if you don't follow those steps, then you're going to fall short of what your goal is. And of course, that's not what we want. We want to have an amazing, thriving, booming wine industry. Thank you for joining me on today's Wine Wednesday. Be sure to tune in next week as I'm going to be sharing with you a Wine Wednesday tips and tricks of the trade from the great north of Alaska. I'll see you next week.